the problem with Russia is if you ask hard questions of the Kremlin, you may end up dead.
Mm.
So there are three things that I've done. In 2014, I doorstepped Putin after the shooting down of MH17, and to get to him, it's impossible in Moscow.
Now, Russia has put 21 people from the UK or connected to the UK on a stop list, which means it won't let them in. They include the Times and Sunday Times writer Matthew Syed, the former Minister Dennis McShane, the government's independent terrorism reviewer Jonathan Hall, Imogen Pater, head of UK Friends of Ukraine, and the documentary maker and journalist John Sweeney. He joins us now. Good morning to you, John.
Morning, Stig.
Well done, well done. This is a badge of honour.
It's like the Kremlin's version of the anti-Oscars. And rather than go to the fancy Vanity Fair party, you now have to pour your own tea and keep away from high windows.
Do you know what you did specifically? Because it is a badge of honour, really. Because any autocratic nation objecting to the free media, it's always a credit to the free media and a stain on the autocratic nation. Do you know what precisely you've done, or is it just a general stance you've adopted over the years?
So I think the problem with Russia is if you ask hard questions of the Kremlin, you may end up dead.
Mm.
So there are three things that I've done. In 2014, I doorstepped Putin after the shooting down of MH17, and to get to him, it's impossible in Moscow. But I played a professor of mammothology in a mammoth museum in Siberia to get to him, and I'd just been to my niece's wedding, and I had a kind of wine stain on my shirt and all that, so I looked like all the other professors of mammothology, and I said, what about the killings in Ukraine? What about MH17? And they didn't like it. And a bit later, somebody came up to me and punched me in the stomach. But that was 2014. Then I've written this book, Killer in the Kremlin, which touches on Putin's sex life. And I go into the allegation by Litvinenko, who, let's remember, was poisoned in London. And he said that Putin was a paedophile. Now, I don't think that's right. I don't think that's true. But I did find an American intelligence analyst who said, no, Putin's not a paedophile, but he is bisexual. And the American intelligence analyst, he got shot. He survived, but he was shot in his home near Washington, D.C. So this stuff can be dangerous, right? And then the third thing I did with Byline was I made a film called Under Deadly Skies, which you can get it on Amazon Prime. It sets out the evidence of Russian torture and then using, for example, white phosphorus against civilian homes in Kherson. And, we interview people whose homes have been incinerated by this weapon, which must not be used against civilians, which, of course, the Russians have used. And so when I think it's the third one that I'm on the magic list for.
But that's such an important point you're making there, John, because I'm struck by the fact that in 6 months' time, it's perfectly possible that Putin, to some extent, will have won. He'll have been rewarded for using white phosphorus and invading Ukraine. Trump will be saying, let's reintroduce Putin back to the world economy, back to the table, back to the G7. Is that plausible, do you think, that we could be a year away from Russia having committed all of these atrocities, acted this way towards Ukraine, being welcomed with open arms again?
Well, that certainly, it feels, watching this miserable performance of Baked Alaska with Trump rolling out the red carpet for a mass murderer. By the way, he's a mass murderer of British people. 10 Brits died when MH17 was shot down.
And he's killed Brits on British soil, hasn't he?
Yeah. So two specifically, Litvinenko, and then Dawn Sturgis, who was an ordinary Wiltshire lass whose boyfriend picked up this bottle of perfume, not knowing that it contained a deadly poison. So Novichok. So yeah, this can happen. I feel that the latest session in the White House with Zelensky plus the European leaders, it seems that at least part of the kind of bumblebee mind of Donald Trump is beginning to get that what Putin is doing is wrong. But at the same time, have the Russians got something on him? Why does he keep on barking up the wrong tree? Russia invaded Ukraine. It's not Ukraine's fault. It's not Zelensky's fault that they're defending themselves. There was a guy called Dookie, who's an American reporter, I think, for Fox News, who sort of hit Zelensky. You're still causing all Ukrainian lives, all this loss of Ukrainian life. No, they're defending themselves exactly as we defended ourselves in 1940. For God's sake, will the American media and Trump, will they wake up to reality? And here's the reality. Essentially, the Russians have just sanctioned 21 people. And, a good number of us politicians or journalists who are telling the truth about this awful, bloody war. And the Russians have been sanctioned because they're trying to cheat sanctions because they're thieves.
Yeah.
And so, there is a complete difference in terms of the people that Russia is sanctioning and the people Britain and the West are sanctioning. One set of thieves and one set of people who, and we're all flawed and we all make mistakes, but we're trying to tell the truth about an evil war.
Yeah, and we've got to keep on doing that, I feel. John, great to speak to you. Thank you for taking the time. That's John Sweeney there, the documentary journalist, now sanctioned by Russia. And he, had the guts to ask Putin to his face about why they shot down that plane, which, that takes a hell of a lot of doing because, it's all about sanctions. It's quite funny for John Sweeney to be sanctioned because he's not going to go to Russia anytime soon. But people do die for challenging Putin, and that's very well, it's 5 years since Navalny, isn't it?
5 years yesterday. And even then, it was very stark to hear John say he had come under some physical attack, a punch in the stomach. Yeah. So, face to face already grappling with all those things. Of course, we mentioned, if you've just joined us, Matthew Syed is also on that list as well. Of course, you know him from The Times.
We cannot agree with the fact that it is now proposed to resolve collective security issues without the Russian Federation. This will not work. We have already explained more than once that Russia does not overstate its interests. But we will ensure our legitimate interests firmly and harshly. And I'm sure that in the West, and above all in the United States, they understand perfectly well that seriously discussing security issues without the Russian Federation is a utopia, a road to nowhere.
What is the UN's position on the sanctioning of ICC officials by the United States?
We firmly believe that the ICC is a key pillar of international criminal justice, and we respect their work. We're very concerned about the decisions taken to further hit ICC officials with sanctions under the order that came out from the United States. The decision imposes severe impediments on the functioning of the Office of the Prosecutor and respect for all the situations that are currently before the court. Judicial independence is a basic principle that must be respected. And these types of measures undermine the foundation of international justice.